Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What Are You Painting Now? In today's Dear Games Workshop, we're taking a look at the Straya tax, or as it's more commonly known, the Australian and New Zealand tax. So, what exactly is the Straya tax? Well, for those of you who don't know, in Australia, we pay considerably more for our Games Workshop products if we are to purchase them retail. How much more? Let's take a look. So, let's take a look at some relatively recent releases. This is the Karatos Fate Weaver. In merry old England, or anywhere else in the UK, it will be £70. In the US of A, it'll be $115. Whereas in Straya, it'll be $190. Now, if we are to translate from the Australian price to these other currencies, what we see is this: a considerable increase in price. So it is not just the conversion of the currency. Let's continue to take a look. So next up, we've got the Eldar Triumvirate. Now, they cost £45 and 75 US dollars and 125 Australian dollars. Taking a look at this, we can still see a considerable gap in cost. Now, let's take a look at one of their more affordable kits. So, taking a look at the Tzeentch Chariot, it's £25 in the in the UK, and 40 in the US, where it is 70 in Australia. Taking a look at that difference, it is almost a difference of double, almost, with the UK. That is a huge jump in price. So, if I am to pay this with retail, why don't I just pay the UK retail, get somebody to parcel post it to me, and pay for their coffee? I've got mates in England. Why not? But let's be fair. So, Games Workshop is not the only person to commit this sin. Many console and other game manufacturers have done this far worse. Let's take a look at the best people who do this. The Overwatch game costs £35 in the UK and costs 60 in the US, whereas it costs 80 here in Australia. However, this is the best case scenario, and the prices are still a bit of a difference, especially when you take a look at the UK there. Let's take a look at the average. So, the average for a new game release is £35 in the UK because they must compete with those other games. In the US, it's still $60 because they must compete with those other games. But in Australia, it's $110, and sometimes more than that, as much as $130 for some pre-orders. So, the thing is that things in Australia can cost considerably more. Some things are cheaper, but as a general rule, Australia costs a lot more. Why is this? There's a couple of reasons. First off, there is the tyranny of distance. Australia is a part of the Asian market. We are the only English speaking people within this market, and it is very small. While many other people may speak English within this market, it is not their native language, and it is not what most people consume. The second part is Australia has a tiny population. When taking a look at this world population map rather than the map itself, you see that the US and the UK are still of a considerable size, almost what they would look on the map, whereas Australia is tiny. Absolutely tiny. Now, let's take a look at the final factor. The regulations and rules that dictate what can come in and out of the country. And of course, that leads to the big thing, tax. Now, as a rule, Australia has around a 20% import tax on most items. These will vary from product to product and from company to company because of the various deals that they have struck with our government. So, with all of that in mind, what does it lead us to? It leads us back to this, the grey market. eBay and Gumtree don't have to abide by those regulations. These people will always be cheaper than the primary market. That is their purpose. They're always going to be cheaper than retail because they do not have to pay the taxes because they exist in a market outside of those tax regulations. To a point that people are starting to take actions. For example, the UK government now taxes gifts sent into the country if they are of a certain value because certain companies have been using the label of gift to get around the whole being taxed thing. So currently I believe if it's worth more than £20, and I very well could be wrong on this, but I would be quite happy to be underquoting rather than overquoting if you're going to be sending a package to a friend. They get taxed, and the person receiving it gets taxed. So this sort of cuts out that idea. So people are trying to fight it, but it will never work. The grey market is always, always going to have a lower price than retail. So what does that mean? That means if people always use that, we won't be seeing a lot of this. Now, for a lot of you, you may look at this place and you may think to yourself, yes, so what? There's no Warhammer stores. But here's the thing. This is where most people got into gaming. Maybe not a Warhammer store, maybe not a Games Workshop, but a retail store to be sure. They are places where people can meet up and have a game. They are places where people can learn how to paint. And most importantly, they are places where people can discuss ideas, where they can be near their fellow enthusiasts, and they can feel at home. Now, the big problem is that when it comes to getting rid of the Warhammer stores, you're not hurting Games Workshop. You're not hurting, the company. You're hurting the guy behind the counter, the average Joe, the guy who's trying to live his dream as somebody who teaches people how to play with miniatures, how to paint miniatures. The thing is, for me, when I take a look at a lot of this, I think about these stores, and I think if people continue down this route, there won't be these stores. But you know what? I can't blame them. I have gotten to the point myself where I question whether I should ever purchase from Games Workshop directly. Now, that is a fairly scary concept because I'm somebody who likes to touch the product, likes to see it in front of them, and I like to talk with other people about the game. So if someone as enthused as me is looking to buy elsewhere, then I know that other people have already done so. So, what is the answer? For me, it's fairly simple, and that is this. We try and help our average Joes, right? And when I say this, I'm speaking to Games Workshop. If you don't help these average Joes, and if you don't keep these stores, it is going to hurt your market forever. So, how do you keep these guys employed? Simple. Parity. I'm saying have these products cost the same as if they would in other foreign markets like the US. I'm not saying discount especially for Australia, I'm just saying match it. The thing is, Australians have an inherent sense of fairness. You want to know what the most pirated thing in the world was? It was Game of Thrones. And you know where it was pirated the most? Australia. Why? Because we couldn't get access to it at the same time that other people could. You know when it plummeted? When people could access it legally. That's all we want. We want a level playing ground. The thing is, the average Games Workshop enthusiast, whether it be Warhammer, Warhammer 40,000, Blood Bowl, or something else, they want a place where they can play with their mates, where they can talk and just shoot the shit. They want somewhere where they feel at home. And if we lose that, you're going to lose these people permanently. And what I'm afraid is that there won't be anyone to replace them. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode. Just sit back and enjoy the music.